The Pond Rebellion. The sun was barely up when I found the notice zip-tied to my fence, its bold letters glaring like a declaration of war. Community Asset Designation. My pond, tucked deep on my 5-acre ranch, had been claimed by the neighborhood HOA as their own. I stood there, coffee growing cold in my hand, staring at the laminated paper signed by Linda, the HOA's self-appointed queen. 3 days later, my Stallions would turn her pristine spring oasis festival into a muddy, viral catastrophia moment that would echo across the internet and teach our little suburb a lesson about boundaries. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to how it all began. I'd just returned from a week-long training seminar in Wyoming, teaching mounted patrol horses to navigate tough terrain. My ranch, sitting just outside the HOA's gated community in a quiet corner of Colorado, was my sanctuary. The pond, a natural gem surrounded by willows, was where I trained my Stallions 1,000-pound beasts bred for strength, not petting zoos. My assistant, Tom, had kept the place running smoothly while I was gone, but no one could have prepared for Linda's latest power grab. I found the pond decked out like a county fair. Tiki torches, bunting, and a sign announcing the Spring Oasis Festival, hosted by your HOA. My land wasn't even under their jurisdiction. For years, my property's independence had shielded me from their petty rules about lawn heights and mailbox colors. But there it was, stapled to my fence post, a notice declaring my pond a shared community asset for beautification and recreation. Linda's signature was scrawled at the bottom, smug as ever. I marched to the HOA office, a tacky building that looked like a discount travel agency. Linda was there, sipping from a garish flamingo-shaped tumbler. She flashed a smile that could curdle milk and explained that my pond was visible from a public trail, making it a community feature under their new aesthetic enhancement clause. I asked if visibility meant they could claim my land like pioneers staking a flag. She laughed. I didn't. When I pointed out my deed and fencing permits, she waved me off, citing easement of public enjoyment. It was nonsense, but Linda had a knack for bending rules into weapons. The pond wasn't just a pretty viewit, it was my horse's training ground. I breed Stallions for police units, animals trained to charge through chaos, not prance for selfies. When I told Linda this, she smirked and suggested showcasing them at the festival, as if my patrol horses were carnival ponies. I asked if she had insurance for trampling. She ignored me. That night, pacing my porch under a starlit sky, I considered legal action. My lawyer confirmed the HOA's new bylaw was shaky, but contesting it would take weeks. Meanwhile, Linda's festival was set for Saturday, 3 days away. Then I noticed something odd. The back pasture gate was open, its wire fence cleanly cut. It wasn't weather or accident, someone had set it up for my horses to wander to the pond. Maybe Linda thought it'd force my hand. Instead, it gave me an idea. If she wanted my pond, she'd get horses and all. I fixed the fence, installed motion-triggered cameras, and prepped my Stallions for a performance she'd never forget. By Saturday morning, the HOA had transformed my pond into a suburban fantasy. White tents dotted the shore, a flimsy wooden dock bobbed in the water, and a "Welcome to Oasis Springs" sign teetered near the cattails. Volunteers in polo shirts hustled about, setting up lemonade stands and yoga mats. Linda, in a peach blazer and a hat wide enough to shade a small village, strutted like she owned the place. A crowd gathered, neighbors, outsiders, even ticket holders from nearby towns, lured by Linda's pitch of a cultural fundraiser. I watched from my porch, sipping coffee, as Tom texted, "Horses ready. Titans itching to move." The festival kicked off with Linda's speech about harmony through nature. She called my pond our shared treasure, oblivious to the irony. Kids chased ducks, a DJ blasted electronic beats, and a yoga team posed on the dock. I waited, biding my time. Then a kid in a neon vest approached my gate, clipboard in hand, demanding access for paddleboard gear. He called me the groundskeeper, courtesy of Linda's lies. I set him straight. This is my land, and that gate stays shut. He scurried off, but Linda marched over, insisting her permits trumped my deed. I told her she had tickets, not rights. She scoffed and turned back to her crowd. That's when I pressed the remote gate trigger. The pasture gate creaked open, and Titan, my lead Stallion, charged like a thunderbolt. For others followed, hooves pounding, manes flying. They hit the pond like a tidal wave, water surging over the dock. Lily pads scattered, ducks fled, and screams erupted. The yoga team's mats went airborne, and the dock snapped with a crack that froze the crowd. Linda's mic shorted out, her blazer soaked as she stood knee-deep in muck, one shoe floating nearby. Titan rolled in the water, tossing his head like a warrior king. The chaos escalated. Another stallion, Rex, spooked by a falling speaker, leapt over a food stall, trailing bunting like a cape. The DJ abandoned his gear, leaving a bass loop screeching. Guests slipped in mud, clutching soggy hot dogs, while kids laughed hysterically. Linda, drenched and hatless, yelled about containing the animals, pointing at me like I'd unleashed dinosaurs. Someone went live on social media, and within minutes, the internet had its new obsession. HOA tries to steal pond, gets horse tsunami. I strolled down to the pond, calm as ever, and whistled. The horses gathered at the shallows, snorting and satisfied. I led them back to the pasture, leaving a battlefield of broken tents, floating decorations, and furious guests demanding refunds. Linda cornered me, hissing about sabotage. I reminded Hethat the horses were on my land, doing what they do. You wanted a community feature, I said. You got one. Her face paled when I mentioned commercial liability. Selling tickets on private property was a legal minefield. She stormed off, boots squishing. By nightfall, the videos were everywhere. One clip, slow motion of Titan rising from the water, racked up 2 million views. Memes exploded. Linda's scream became a reaction gif. Caption: when you claim a pond and get baptized. The local news ran a segment, framing it as a property dispute gone wild. The HOA's insurance company refused to cover damages, citing Linda's false claim that the event was on their land. The board fractured, 2 members resigned, and the president called an emergency meeting. I showed up, uninvited, to find Linda presenting a PowerPoint titled Community Safety. She accused me of endangering lives, demanding fines and a ban. I stood, laid out the facts: my land, my pond, her trespassing. I played drone footage of her crew cutting my fence and read a cease and desist letter. Then I shared her voicemail, promising the event would be over before I noticed. The room went quiet. The president removed his glasses and suggested a leadership change. Linda stormed out, and no one followed. Days later, the pond was calm again, ducks gliding over its surface. Neighbors brought casseroles and beer, calling me a legend. Linda vanished. Rumors said she moved to Arizona. The HOA scrapped her bylaws, declaring my land untouchable. I added a sign: private property. Trespassers meet horses. Beneath it, in smaller print, they don't negotiate. The story didn't fade. A news crew filmed Titan kicking up mud, and a toy company pitched a stallion splash playset. I declined, but let a college student interview me for her thesis on property rights. She asked if I regretted the chaos. I didn't. It wasn't about revenge, it was about reminding people that boundaries matter, and nature doesn't bow to clipboards. The community changed. Petty fines stopped, and the HOA newsletter swapped rants for recipes. One neighbor planted flowers by the mailbox with a sign: for Linda, with love, sort of. I found an envelope on my fence one day. No name, just 6 words in Linda's handwriting. You won. I'll never forget. I kept it quiet, a private end to a public war. As I watched Titan graze by the pond, its waters glinting in the sunset, I knew this was bigger than me. It was about standing firm, trusting instinct, and letting justice run free, sometimes with hooves. The internet called it a riot. I called it home. What do you think? Was I right to let the horses loose, or did I go too far? Share your thoughts in the comments, especially on where you stand on fighting injustice or handling conflict. Let's hear your perspective.